Chapter 6, Hendon in the Prince, London Bridge. Meanwhile, Miles Hendon was leading the prince through the narrow streets towards the river. As they ran, they heard people talking. They heard people talking about the king's death. The news had traveled quickly through the city. So Edward was very sad while he was listening to this news, and he was just thinking that he is the king now and an impostor is in his place. So soon they reached London Bridge, and it was actually more like a town than a bridge. It had shops, markets, inn where travelers could stay the night. So there, the prince and Hendon came towards the inn on the bridge and where the young man was staying. A rough voice shouted, "So here you are! You won't escape again." And who was he? John Canty. So somehow Miles Hendon was successful in, saving Edward from John Canty. So John Canty disappeared into the darkness, and Hendon led Edward into the inn and upstairs to his room. At the inn, Hendon's room at the inn was small, cheap one at the top of the house. The furniture was poor and cheap. But the bed was clean and comfortable, so Edward lay down at once. He was behaving like a king because he has realized that his father is dead and now, of course, he is the king. But Hendon, at the end, on the other side, was thinking that he is poor mad boy who's just pretending to be a prince, but he behaves like a prince, but he looks like a pauper. So he's just thinking that he's quite mad. So a servant brought supper. Miles woke Edward gently. The boy went, at once to the washstand and the corner, and they were just behaving like a prince and a servant, of course. So in that conversation, Edward actually asks that, okay, you are brave men, although you do not know how to behave when you are in the presence of a king. So where do you come from? He just wanted to have a conversation with Miles Hendon. Miles Hendon's story. He started off his story by telling about his family members. That his father is Sir Richard Hendon. He is rich and powerful and kind-hearted too. His mother, who died when his two brothers were young, and his brother Arthur is the eldest. He also has a good heart like his father's. And his youngest brother Hugh, who is cruel and greedy. Well, he has also his cousin living with them, Edith, who was the daughter of rich lord and lady who died when she was a baby. So actually, Edith and Miles loved each other, but his father wanted her to marry Arthur. But his brother Arthur was in love with another girl and he wanted Edith to marry him, of course. So it's kind of a very confusing situation. Meanwhile, you guys know that Hugh is cruel and greedy. So he was in love with Edith's money and her land. So again and again, Hugh begged his father to let him marry her, Edith, of course. So in the end, Miles was sent away to join the army. He fought bravely in France, but he was taken as a prisoner. And he has spent 7 years in a French prison and later he escaped at last. So he just arrived in England and that was his story. Sir Miles Hendon. So here comes Edward's story because he patiently had listened Miles' story. So he poured out his story to Hendon. He told him about the young beggar and the soldier and the cruel boys of Christ Church. He told him all about his adventures in Fish Street and begged John Canty. So he finished off his story and they both went to sleep. And early next morning, Hendon left the boy asleep and went to buy clothes for his friend. And after half an hour later, he had bought everything he wanted. They were all clothes, but warm and good. Hendon was pleased with them, and he just thought that he did not have enough money for new ones, but they were better than the old rags, which was Edward actually wearing. So when Hendon returned to the inn with the clothes, he was riding a tired old horse and leading a small grey donkey. So he left them in the stable with the other animals and he ran upstairs to his room. But he could not find Edward and he just got disappeared. So he just went to somebody and they had a conversation. So he said that the young men came here alone, but when he and your friend were leaving the inn together, he saw a big strong man standing at the corner of the street and he was watching them. So Hendon said to himself that so I was right, that men sent a messenger to the inn. And who is that man? That is John Kenty. So he sent a messenger to the inn because he knew that the boy would never go with him. So he thought that he should follow the messenger because he thought that I was asking for him and now I must save him. Yes, Miles Hendon should save Edward. The work of a king. The business of government. The same morning in the palace, Tom Canty was dreaming about Fish Street. People playing around him. He was missing his mother. He was just, he found some trill shining new pennies, and it was all about Fish Street. But he knew that he was dreaming once his eye opened. Tom opened his eyes and saw the beautiful furniture and the pictures in the palace. So after that, he got up. A servant poured water into the golden bowl. Okay, so here comes the servants for each and every task, whatever he is doing, servants are coming up to help him, right? So after breakfast, Tom found that even kings have work to do. He had a long, boring meeting with his ministers, the men who helped the country, the men who helped to rule the country. Outside the palace, the sun was shining. Tom wanted to go out and play, but he was the king, and kings must rule their country. Then the moment came when he needed to sign the important papers, and he really needed what? The Great Seal, and of course, which was missing. Tom did not know what was a Great Seal. He could only shake his head, and the ministers were very sad. The Whipping Boy. Next, Tom had lessons with his teacher, and he found the work very hard. The teacher shook his head. What is wrong with you, my lord? You have forgotten all your Greek and most of your Latin. You just aren't trying to learn. How will you rule this country if you can't even do your schoolwork? So he was kind of sad, but of course, he did not know that he is an impostor. So here comes the Humphrey, and he was actually the whipping boy. So the whipping boy actually, start telling about his job, that whipping boy's job is to be whipped when you have done something wrong. Your teachers cannot punish you because you're a prince, and of course, since yesterday you are the king, so nobody can punish the king of England. So they whip me while you watch. As you can see in this particular picture, there is a whipping boy in the black suit, and there's a teacher standing, and the prince, oh sorry, the king of England is sitting. So he just, there is a very sad scene. So there comes king's first command that he won't let them live for his mistake, and he gives order from today that nobody must touch you, and Humphrey, you are safe. To his surprise, it was a very surprising scene for Humphrey, that he just thought that he lost his job, but to which he replied that do not cry, Humphrey, your job is safe, and when we both are grown up, your sons can be my sons' whipping boys. Tom changes the law. So after his lessons, Tom had a talk with the whipping boy, right? And Tom looked out and saw a crowd of people. They were following some soldiers who were taking a prisoner to put to death. Tom felt sorry for him and he asked to bring that man here. Soon the prisoner stood before him and he asked him that what he just did. So the officer replied, my lord, he poisoned his neighbor. He put something in his food and the poor man died in the terrible pain. And he will be boiled to death, my lord. That's the way we punish poisoners, and it is the law. So Tom now changes the law. He changes the law as he asked the guy who was standing there that, did you poison your neighbor? And to which he replied that, no, my lord, truly I did not. He became ill and he died, but nobody believes me. But he replied that, I believe you. The gods let him go, and from today nobody will ever be boiled again. So this is the very first law he changed, that he is not gonna, you know, the poisoners are not gonna be boiled now. Miles searches for his friend. Meanwhile, Miles Hendon was searching for Edward. He searched everywhere, but he could not find him. Of course, there was one small boy in the great city. So he thought that Edward will try to escape from Canty. And if he does escape, he will try to get to the Hendon Hall because he knows that I want to go there too. So he does not know the way, but he can ask. And the Hendon Hall is not very far from London. So he'll go towards the Hendon Hall and perhaps he shall find the boy on the way there. So he climbed onto his old horse and led the donkey and rode towards his home. The king of the beggars. What about Edward? Well, he followed the young messenger at once because he thought that Hendon wanted him. So he followed him for several miles and he came to know that there outside the farmhouse stood John Kenty, and he wore beggar's rag and he had a bandage around his eyes, as you can see in this picture. But there were holes in the bandage, and he saw that the boy and smiled a cruel smile. The messenger was lying. He did not come from Sir Miles at all. Now what am I going to do? John Kenty stepped forward and seized Edward by arm. And he just said, now stop this nonsense, Tom, and come with me. The police are chasing me because I killed that stupid old priest. And who is that? Father Andrew. But I have some new friends, and you, my boy, are going to join them. He pulled Edward inside the building there by a big fire set a crowd of beggars and thieves. So one shouted, who are you, boy? Edward stood up straight. I am Edward, King of England. There were shouts. There were shouts of laughter. Why? Because, of course, they all were beggars right there. Long live Edward, the king of beggars, they cried. Where's your crown, my lord? My friends, this is my son Tom. The poor boy is mad, and he thinks that he is the king of England, but I'll soon beat that nonsense out of him, and he's very angry. So, in the end, a big red-faced man stopped him. Not so fast. Be patient with the boy. Can't you see he's ill? There, my lord. We are all friends here, and I won't let them hurt you.